The blue light of Earth shrank to a tiny dot on the view screen as Ambassador Samantha Wright watched from the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch. 5 years had passed since humanity's first contact with alien life, and the journey had been anything but smooth. Samantha adjusted her formal Navy uniform and tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. The Galactic Council's invitation had arrived 3 days ago, unexpected but not unwelcome. After years of being kept at arm's length by the interstellar community, Earth would finally have a seat at the table during the annual summit. "Ambassador, we're ready for the final briefing," said Peter Daniels, her communications officer. His red hair was neatly trimmed, and his freckled face looked tired after days of preparation. "Thank you, Peter. I'll be right there." Samantha took one last look at Earth before following him through the sleek corridors of the ship. In the conference room, Dr. Olivia Martinez was projecting holographic profiles of the Council's 27 alien species. Her dark eyes scanned the data with intense focus. "The interactions will be the biggest challenge," Olivia said, pointing to an image of an insect-like being with multiple compound eyes. "They've opposed our membership from the beginning. Their ambassador has repeatedly called humans barely evolved primates with delusions of grandeur." Alan Blackwood, head of security, leaned against the wall. His weathered face showed little emotion, but his eyes missed nothing. "The Veldari are just as hostile. Those floating light shows think having physical bodies makes us primitive." Samantha nodded. "We've studied their customs, their languages, their social taboos. We'll be polite, professional, and persistent." She pulled up her own data screen. "The Council Elder this cycle is Ziktar of the Collusions. He's been neutral regarding Earth. That could work in our favor." Peter looked nervous. "What exactly are they expecting from us at this summit?" "They're not expecting much," Samantha said with a slight smile. "And that's our advantage. The Council thinks we're simple, emotional, and easy to read. They don't understand that humanity has thousands of years of experience dealing with foreign powers who underestimate us." Alan checked his sidearm discreetly. "And if diplomacy fails?" "It won't," Samantha said firmly. "But we have contingencies for everything. Earth is counting on us." The meeting continued for hours. They reviewed greeting protocols for each species, discussing which required eye contact and which found it threatening. They practiced the proper pronunciation of titles and honorifics. They memorized the complex seating arrangements that would prevent interspecies conflicts during council sessions. As the briefing concluded, Samantha addressed her small team. "The 4 of us represent 4 billion humans. The decisions made at this summit will affect Earth for generations. We need to be perfect." Later that night, as the Olive Branch traveled through hyperspace, Samantha couldn't sleep. She wandered to the ship's small garden, a piece of Earth among the stars. The plants helped recycle the air and provided fresh food, but they also offered comfort, a reminder of home. She found Peter there, staring at a small blue flower. "Nervous?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. "One wrong word could damage humanity's future." Samantha sat beside him. "Do you know why I chose you for this mission, Peter?" He shook his head. "Because you care enough to be scared. Fear keeps us careful. It keeps us humble." She touched the soft petals of the flower. "But remember this, we're not going to the Council as beggars. We're going as equals. They need us as much as we need them, whether they know it yet or not." The ship's AI announced they would reach the Council station, Harmony of Stars, in 12 hours. Samantha stood, straightening her uniform. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we make history." As Peter left, Samantha remained in the garden, mentally rehearsing her opening address to the Council. Humanity had waited long enough for its place among the stars. She would ensure they got it, one polite, carefully chosen word at a time. The Harmony of Stars loomed before them, a massive ring-shaped structure with countless lights twinkling against the void of space. Samantha and her team stood at the Olive Branch's viewing port, taking in the sight of the Galactic Council's headquarters. "It's beautiful," whispered Peter, his eyes wide with wonder. And heavily armed, added Alan, pointing to the nearly invisible defense systems embedded throughout the station's exterior. Those aren't decorations. Their ship docked with practiced precision. As the airlock cycled, Samantha straightened her uniform one final time. Remember, she said to her team, we are representatives of Earth, polite, respectful, and dignified at all times. The doors slid open to reveal a reception committee of various alien species. At the front stood a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and a crest of feather-like appendages. Ambassador Wright, the alien spoke in perfect English. I am Elder Ziktar of the Colossian Confederation. Welcome to the Harmony of Stars. Samantha bowed at precisely the angle her research indicated was proper for Colossian custom, not too deep to suggest submission, but enough to show respect. Elder Ziktar, we are honored by your personal welcome. May the light of understanding shine between our peoples. A murmur ran through the gathered aliens. Samantha had used a traditional Colossian greeting, one rarely mastered by outsiders. Ziktar's feathered crest rippled in what Samantha recognized as pleased surprise. You have studied our ways well, Ambassador. The welcome party moved through grand hallways, filled with representatives of countless species. Some floated instead of walked. Others moved on multiple legs or no legs at all. The air was filled with translation devices working to bridge the gap between dozens of languages. A group of insect-like beings clicked their mandibles as the humans passed. The primates clean up well, one said, clearly intending to be overheard. Peter tensed, but Samantha gave him a small, warning glance. He relaxed, forcing a diplomatic smile. They were led to a large circular chamber where representatives sat in rising tiers, each behind a nameplate identifying their species. The human delegation was shown to their seats, near the bottom, far from the center of power. The lowest tier, Olivia whispered. They're making this statement about our status. Then we'll make our own statement through our conduct, Samantha replied calmly. A shimmering cloud of purple light floated toward them. As it approached, it condensed into a vaguely humanoid shape. So these are the famous humans, the light being said, its voice oddly melodic. I am Ambassador Ilara of the Veldari Consciousness. Ambassador Ilara, Samantha nodded respectfully. Your people's achievements in quantum physics are legendary. The light being flickered briefly. Yes, we mastered energy conversion when your kind was still discovering fire. How quaint that you've made it this far. Samantha maintained her polite smile. Every civilization develops at its own pace. We value the journey as much as the destination. Ilara's light dimmed slightly, perhaps annoyed that the human hadn't taken offense. Throughout the day, the human team endured similar encounters. The Ictoraxian delegation refused to speak to them directly. The gaseous Plovarians moved away whenever the humans came near, claiming their solid state contaminated the air. Yet for each snub, Samantha and her team responded with perfect diplomacy. They knew the alien protocols better than expected. They made no cultural missteps. Their patience seemed endless. As the initial reception wound down, Elder Ziktar approached Samantha again. Your composure is remarkable, Ambassador Wright. Many new species respond emotionally to their first council gathering. Samantha smiled. We understand the importance of good first impressions, Elder. Humans have much to learn, but also much to offer. Ziktar studied her with all 4 of his eyes. Perhaps you do. He lowered his voice. Not all see your presence as unwelcome. The formal sessions begin tomorrow. I would suggest preparing thoroughly. As the elder moved away, Alan leaned close to Samantha. That sounded like a warning. Or advice, she replied quietly. Either way, we'll be ready. Peter looked around at the alien delegates, many of whom were watching the humans with curiosity or contempt. They have no idea what humans are really like, do they? No, Samantha said. And for now, That's exactly how we want it. Alan Blackwood moved silently through the dimly lit corridors of the station's lower levels. The security chief had slipped away during a break in the diplomatic meetings, following a hunch that had been bothering him since their arrival. His military training from Earth served him well as he placed tiny devices in shadowed corners. These were passive scanners, designed by Dr. Martinez to record nearby communications without detection. A sound made him freeze. Two Xeraxians chittered as they passed nearby, their insect-like bodies casting long shadows. Alan pressed himself against the wall, barely breathing until they disappeared around a corner. Back in the human quarters, Samantha reviewed her notes for tomorrow's trade discussion. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Alan slipped in, his face grim. "We have a problem." He placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic display showing intercepted communications. The language was alien, but the translation scrolled beneath. "I caught this on one of my scanners," Alan explained. "It's a private channel between the Xeraxian delegation and someone on their homeworld." Samantha leaned forward, reading aloud. "The evidence is prepared. The vote will proceed as planned. The humans will be contained before they can spread further." She looked up sharply. "Contained." "There's more," Alan said, scrolling through the data. "They've been building a case against Earth for months. They want the Council to declare humans too volatile for interstellar cooperation." Dr. Martinez and Peter joined them, faces serious as Alan explained his findings. "They can't just quarantine an entire species," Peter protested. "The Council has done it before," Olivia said quietly. "The Trilleri were isolated for 300 years after they were deemed culturally aggressive." Samantha's mind raced. What evidence do they claim to have? Alan displayed more intercepted communications. They've been collecting and manipulating information. Every human military exercise, every border dispute, even our entertainment, they're presenting it as proof that we're violent by nature. "That's absurd," Peter said. "Every species has conflicts." "Not like humans," Olivia countered. "Most Council species evolved past their aggressive phases before developing space travel. We're unusual in that regard." Samantha studied the data. "There's more to this." "Alan, what's this section about resource potential?" Alan's expression darkened. "Earth is rich in elements rare elsewhere in the galaxy. I think this containment may be a cover for something else." "An invasion," Peter whispered. "Or forced trade agreements once we're isolated from potential allies," Samantha said. "Either way, it threatens Earth." The team fell silent, weighing the gravity of the situation. "We should expose them immediately," Peter suggested. Samantha shook her head. "Not yet. We need more evidence, and we need to understand who else is involved." She turned to Olivia. "The Veldari, are they part of this?" Olivia reviewed the data. "It appears so. Several other species too, but not all. This seems to be a faction within the Council." "What about Elder Ziktar?" Alan asked. "Unclear," said Olivia. "The collusions aren't mentioned directly." Samantha stood, decision made. "We continue as planned. We attend meetings, make proposals, act as if we know nothing. Meanwhile, Alan, expand your surveillance. Peter, get close to the administrative staff. They often know more than the diplomats. Olivia, analyze every piece of data for weaknesses in their argument. And if we confirm this conspiracy?" Alan asked. Samantha's eyes hardened, though her voice remained calm. "Then we do what humans have always done when cornered. We fight back, but we do it smart, not angry." Later that night, alone in her quarters, Samantha recorded a private message to be sent to Earth through their secure channel. Her words were careful, coded, but clear to those who needed to understand. Earth might soon face a crisis beyond its atmosphere. As she finished the recording, Samantha looked out at the stars. The humans had come to the Council with open hands. But if necessary, those hands could form fists. For now, though, the polite smiles would continue, hiding the growing determination beneath. Samantha stood before the Velderi representative, Ilara, in a private meeting chamber. A holographic display between them showed Earth's peaceful exploration missions over the past 5 years. As you can see, Samantha explained, human expansion has been careful and respectful. We've established research outposts, not military bases. Ilara's form shimmered, the light being's equivalent of a thoughtful nod. The data is persuasive. Ambassador Wright, perhaps I misjudged your species. After the meeting, Ilara floated away, seemingly convinced. Samantha allowed herself a small smile of victory. That went well, Peter said as they walked back to their quarters. Too well, Samantha replied, her instincts warning her. The Velderi never changed their minds so quickly. Her suspicion proved correct the very next day. At the full council session, the Xaraxian representative, clicking its mandibles loudly, rose to address the gathering. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, the insectoid alien began. We have disturbing evidence to present regarding the human delegation. A hush fell over the chamber. Samantha straightened in her seat, maintaining a calm expression despite her racing heart. The main view screen activated, showing Samantha's private meeting with Ilara, but the images were altered. The peaceful exploration missions now appeared as military operations. Words were changed in the subtitles, making Samantha seem threatening rather than diplomatic. Ambassador Wright admitted to me that their exploration vessels carry weapons capable of destroying entire cities, the Velderi representative claimed, her light form pulsing dramatically. This is false, Samantha stated firmly, rising to her feet. The recording has been altered. The Xaraxian clicked dismissively. Of course, the human denies it, but we have more evidence. New images appeared on the screen. Earth military exercises, taken out of context. Footage from human war movies, presented as actual events. Historical conflicts, with casualty numbers greatly exaggerated. This species, the Xaraxian continued, has a history of violence unlike any we have seen. They do not merely fight for survival. They fight for power, for resources, even for abstract concepts like freedom and justice. They cannot be trusted with interstellar capabilities. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Some representatives looked shocked. Others nodded in agreement. A few seemed uncertain, looking between the Xaraxian and the human delegation. Samantha waited for her chance to respond, but the Xaraxian wasn't finished. We propose immediate action, a quarantine of the human solar system until they can prove their peaceful intentions over several of their generations. Now the chamber erupted in debate. Elder Ziktar called for order, his 4 arms raised for silence. Ambassador Wright, you may respond to these accusations, Ziktar said when quiet returned. Samantha stood with dignity. These claims are not only false but malicious. The evidence has been manipulated. We request time to prepare our defense and present the original, unaltered recordings. The Xaraxian representative made a sound like grinding stones. While the humans prepare more deceptions, we remain vulnerable. I call for an immediate vote on the deployment of a peacekeeping fleet to the human solar system. Peacekeeping fleet? Samantha questioned sharply. That was not your original proposal. A necessary precaution, the Velderi added, to ensure compliance while the quarantine is organized. Before Samantha could object further, the council moved to vote. Species after species registered their decisions. Some abstained. Many voted in favor of the fleet. A few, too few, opposed. When the voting ended, Elder Ziktar announced the result with a tone of regret. The motion passes. A peacekeeping fleet will be dispatched to the human solar system within 3 cycles. Samantha kept her face neutral, but her hands tightened into fists beneath the table. She exchanged a quick glance with her team. Peter looked pale. Olivia's eyes were wide with shock. Alan's face had turned to stone, his military training taking over. As the session adjourned, Samantha's mind was already calculating their next move. The rules of diplomacy were being broken by those who had created them. Now, humanity would need to respond in kind. Samantha paced the small communication room aboard the Olive Branch. For 2 hours, she had tried to send an emergency message to Earth. Every attempt failed. "Our signals are being blocked," Peter said, his fingers moving quickly over the control panel. "I've tried all frequencies, even the emergency channels." "Keep trying," Samantha ordered. Her voice remained level, but her eyes showed her growing concern. The door slid open as Olivia burst in, breathless from running. "I analyzed the fleet manifest," she said, holding up a data pad. "It's worse than we thought." Samantha took the pad, her face paling as she read. "These aren't peacekeeping ships. These are planet killers. The Krell-class destroyers can crack a planet's crust," Olivia explained. "And those Velderi energy projectors, they could boil away Earth's oceans." Peter stopped his work, looking up in horror. "They can't be planning to destroy Earth, even for them. That's a precautionary measure," Alan said from the doorway, his voice cold. "I intercepted this transmission 10 minutes ago." He played a recording. The voice of the Taraxian representative clicked and hissed through the translator. "The human threat must be neutralized completely. Their biological adaptability makes them too dangerous to merely contain. The fleet will ensure they never leave their gravity well again." Silence fell over the room as the meaning became clear. This wasn't about quarantine or peacekeeping. It was about elimination. "How long do we have?" Samantha asked. "The fleet launches in 6 hours," Alan replied. "They'll reach Earth in 4 days." Samantha straightened her shoulders. "I'm going to make one last appeal through proper channels. Peter, prepare our recordings, the originals, not the doctored versions. Olivia, gather all data on those warships. Alan, secure our position here and prepare exit routes." Her team moved with renewed purpose, while Samantha requested an urgent meeting with Elder Ziktar. The Colossian met her in a private chamber, his feathered crest flat against his head, a sign of distress in his species. "Ambassador Wright," he greeted her formally. "I regret the Council's decision." "Elder, I need to show you what we've discovered," Samantha said, presenting her evidence. "The fleet being sent to Earth isn't for peacekeeping. It's armed for planetary destruction." Ziktar studied the data, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. This exceeds the Council's authorization." "And that's not all," Samantha continued, showing him the unaltered recordings and the Xeraxians' intercepted message. When she finished, Ziktar's crest had darkened to a deep blue. Anger, if Samantha remembered correctly. "This deception dishonors the Council," he said slowly. "However, I cannot unilaterally override a majority vote." "Then help me call for a new vote," Samantha pleaded. "My world has billions of innocent lives." Ziktar's secondary arms moved in what Samantha recognized as a gesture of regret. "The voting period is closed by law. It cannot be reopened for 3 standard cycles. By then Earth could be destroyed," Samantha finished. "I am truly sorry, Ambassador. The Council system has rules that even I must follow." Samantha stood very still, understanding washing over her. "So that's why they rushed the vote. They knew the timing would prevent any appeal." "It appears so," Ziktar admitted. "And there's nothing you can do?" Samantha asked, her last hope fading. "Nothing within Council law," the Elder replied, emphasis on the last 2 words. Samantha caught his meaning immediately. The Elder couldn't help them officially, but he wasn't stopping them from acting on their own. She gave a slight nod. "Thank you for your time, Elder. Humanity will remember who stood with us in this hour." Back on the Olive Branch, Samantha found her team waiting. Peter looked up hopefully, but his face fell when he saw her expression. "The diplomatic channels have failed," she told them. "The Elder's hands are tied by Council law." "What do we do now?" Olivia asked, fear in her voice. Samantha took a deep breath, making the hardest decision of her career. "We stop being diplomats," she said. and we start being humans. The human delegation gathered in the secure conference room of the Olive Branch. Gone were the diplomatic smiles and carefully measured words. In their place was a focused intensity that none of them had shown since arriving at the council station. "Let me be clear about our situation," Samantha said, her voice steady. "The council has voted to send a fleet to Earth under false pretenses. That fleet carries weapons capable of destroying our planet. We can't warn Earth because our communications are jammed. And we have less than 6 hours before the fleet launches." She looked at each member of her team. "I've called this emergency meeting to tell you that I'm officially abandoning diplomatic protocols. What I'm about to propose goes against our mission parameters, and I won't order any of you to participate. If you want to leave now, there will be no consequences." No one moved. "What's the plan, Ambassador?" Alan asked, already shifting into military posture. "First, I'm no longer just an ambassador," Samantha replied. She reached into a hidden compartment in the wall and removed a small device. When she pressed her thumb to it, it glowed blue. "In case of existential threat to Earth, I'm authorized to activate Protocol Omega." Peter's eyes widened. "I thought that was just a rumor." "It's very real," Samantha said. "From this moment, I'm acting as Earth Defense Command's senior officer in this sector." "Alan, you're my second in command." Alan nodded sharply, unsurprised. He'd suspected Samantha had a military background beneath her diplomatic training. Samantha turned to the ship's communication system. Official log. "Diplomatic protocols have failed. Disengaging polite mode." She looked back at her team. "Now we do what humans do best. We adapt and overcome." Samantha moved to the main display and pulled up a schematic of the station. "We have 4 objectives. First, warn Earth. Second, expose the conspiracy to the full council. Third, delay or stop the fleet launch. Fourth, secure our extraction." The station's emergency broadcast system could override the jamming, Peter suggested, his demeanor changing from nervous diplomat to focused communications expert. "I can access it, but we'd need to reach the main communications hub in Sector 7. The fleet data is stored in the Military Logistics Center," Olivia added, pulling up its location on the schematic. "If I can access it, I could create a virus to scramble their navigation systems." "Both locations will be heavily guarded," Alan pointed out. "I've identified their security patterns, but we'll need a distraction." Samantha nodded. "I'll provide that. I'm going to call for an emergency address to the full council." "They won't grant it," Olivia said. "Not through normal channels," Samantha agreed. "But Elder Ziktar gave me his personal access codes. Not directly, but he left them visible when we met. He wanted us to see them." A small smile crossed Alan's face. "He's smarter than I gave him credit for." "We'll need weapons," Peter said quietly. From under the conference table, Alan pulled out a case. When he opened it, 4 small devices nestled in foam padding gleamed in the light. "Sonic disruptors," he explained. "Non-lethal, but highly effective. They were hidden in our diplomatic gifts. Standard Earth protocol for hostile territory." Olivia stared at the weapons. "I'm a scientist, not a soldier. And I hope you won't need to use this," Samantha said gently, handing her one of the devices. "But Earth's survival depends on all of us now." They spent the next hour planning, transforming from diplomats into an efficient strike team. Their formal attire was replaced by darker, more practical clothing hidden in their luggage. Communication devices were synced. Timing was coordinated down to the second. Before they left the ship, Samantha gathered them one last time. "The aliens think they know humans from our diplomatic face," she said. "They've never seen what happens when humans are backed into a corner. They have no idea what we're capable of when those we love are threatened." She checked her watch. "Synchronized timers. We move in 30 minutes." As Peter and Olivia made final preparations, Alan approached Samantha privately. "You've done this before," he said. It wasn't a question. Samantha's eyes held ancient weariness for just a moment. Earth's first contact wasn't with the Council. The official records were sanitized. Alan nodded in understanding. The others don't know. They don't need to, Samantha replied. They just need to do their jobs. Now let's go show the council what humanity looks like when the polite mask comes off. The lights in Sector 7 of the Harmony of Stars flickered as Peter worked his magic on the station's communication systems. His fingers flew across the alien interface, translating human coding techniques to the council's technology. 30 seconds, Alan warned from the doorway. Sonic disruptor ready. 2 unconscious Thoraxian guards lay in the corridor outside, victims of the surprisingly effective human device. Almost there, Peter muttered. Sweat beaded on his forehead as lines of code streamed across the screen. These firewalls are good, but not good enough. With a final command, he broke through. I'm in. Broadcasting now. Throughout the council station and across subspace channels, emergency broadcasts began to play. The unaltered recordings of the Thoraxian and Veldari conversations exposed their true plans. The doctored evidence played side by side with the originals, clearly showing the manipulation. Message sent to Earth, Peter confirmed, and to every council species simultaneously. Alan checked his timer. 3 minutes until Samantha's speech. Let's move to Extraction Point 2. Across the station in the Military Logistics Center, Olivia worked with similar intensity. Years of studying alien technology had prepared her for this moment. She had already uploaded her virus to the fleet's navigation systems, ensuring they would be unable to plot a course to Earth. Step away from the console, a harsh voice ordered. A Veldari security officer floated in the doorway, energy tendrils crackling with threat. Olivia raised her hand slowly, but her eyes darted to her timer. Just 15 more seconds needed for the virus to fully deploy. I said step away. The Veldari pulsed brighter, preparing to strike. Suddenly, the light being shuddered and collapsed into a formless puddle. Behind it stood Samantha, sonic disruptor in hand. Energy beings and sonic weapons don't mix well, she noted calmly. Finish the upload, Olivia. I'll watch the door. In the Grand Council chamber, confusion reigned. The emergency broadcasts had thrown the gathered representatives into chaos. Some demanded explanations. Others called for human arrests. A few began to question the false evidence they had been shown. Into this disorder strode Samantha Wright, flanked by station security officers who had been convinced by the evidence to support her. Elder Ziktar stood at his podium, watching her approach with all 4 eyes. Humans. The Thoraxian representative chittered angrily. Arrest them. They have violated council security. We have done what was necessary to expose your lies, Samantha replied, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. Gone was the deferential tone she had used for days. Now she spoke with the authority of someone used to command. She turned to address the full council. Representatives of the galactic community, you have been deceived. The Thoraxians, Veldari, and their collaborators planned the destruction of Earth, not its quarantine. Gasps and murmurs spread through the chamber. That is absurd. The Veldari representative flared brightly. The human speaks falsehoods. The evidence is being transmitted to all of you now, Samantha continued. The fleet you approved carries planet-killing weapons. The recordings you were shown were altered. The facts you based your vote on were lies. She gestured, and the main display activated, showing data from the fleet manifest that Olivia had extracted. Weapon specifications scrolled across the screen, clearly designed for planetary bombardment. This is how humans respond when threatened with extinction, Samantha declared. We act. We fight. We survive. We will not allow Earth to be destroyed by those who fear what they do not understand. The Thoraxian representative lunged toward her, mandibles clicking in rage. Alan appeared as if from nowhere, stepping between them. With a precise movement, he activated his sonic disruptor. The insectoid alien collapsed, its sensitive hearing overwhelmed. The human has attacked a council representative, someone shouted. In self-defense, Elder Ziktar stated firmly, I witnessed the attack. His crest had turned a deep red, the color of justice in collusion culture. Around the chamber, security alerts blared as Peter's broadcasts continued to spread. The station's artificial intelligence announced, "Security breach in fleet control. Launch sequence aborted. Awaiting command authorization." Olivia's voice came through Samantha's communicator. "The virus is deployed. Their navigational systems are scrambled. They can't target Earth even if they launch." Samantha nodded slightly, then addressed the stunned council again. "We did not come here seeking conflict. We came in peace with open hands and honest words. But when those are rejected, when our very existence is threatened, you see before you the other face of humanity." She stood tall in the center of the chamber, no longer a humble diplomat, but a protector of her species. "We request an emergency session of the full council, with all evidence presented, and a new vote on Earth's status in the galactic community." Elder Ziktar studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "The emergency session is granted." He turned to the security officers. "Detain the Xoraxian and Veldari representatives, along with any others implicated in the evidence. The humans will remain free until the evidence is evaluated." As the chamber erupted once more, Samantha allowed herself a small smile. The humans had done what they did best. They had changed the rules when the rules failed them. And now, for better or worse, the Council would never see humanity the same way again. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began in chaos and ended in a new order. Representatives from all 27 species filled the chamber, their voices blending into a storm of sound. On the main display screen, the peacekeeping fleet hung motionless in space, disabled by Olivia's brilliant coding work. Elder Ziktar stood at the center podium, his crest fully extended in authority. Beside him stood Samantha, no longer dressed in diplomatic finery but in the practical dark clothing that had served her during their operation. Silence. The elder's voice cut through the noise, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. Gradually, the room quieted. "The evidence presented by the human delegation is irrefutable," Ziktar announced. "The Xoraxian and Veldari representatives, along with their conspirators, have violated the most sacred principles of this council." On a side screen, the Xoraxian representative and 3 others were being escorted away by security forces. The Veldari representative's light form was contained in a special energy field, dimmed to an angry purple glow. "Their punishment will be decided according to council law," the elder continued. "But first, we must address the humans." All eyes turned to Samantha. Some gazes held fear, others respect, and many showed a new wariness. "Ambassador Wright," Ziktar said formally, "on behalf of the Council, I extend our deepest apologies for the actions taken against your species. The fleet has been recalled. Your communication channels are restored. Earth is safe." Samantha nodded, accepting the apology with grace. "Thank you, Elder. Humanity appreciates the Council's swift correction once the truth was revealed." A representative from the Serpentine Sleth race raised a scale-covered hand. "We must address the methods used by the humans. They disabled our security systems, accessed restricted areas, and held several officials at weapon point." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "The humans did what was necessary to prevent genocide," Ziktar countered. "Would your species have acted differently if faced with extinction?" The Sleth representative lowered their head in acknowledgement. Samantha stepped forward. "May I address the Council?" Ziktar gestured for her to proceed. "Esteemed representatives," Samantha began, her voice clear and strong. "What you witnessed today was not the exception for humanity. It was the rule. We prefer peace. We thrive in cooperation. But when threatened, we will defend ourselves with every resource at our disposal." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes and eye equivalents of each species. "Humans are unique in the galaxy because we never shed our survival instincts as we develop technology. We carry within us both the diplomat and the warrior, the scientist and the soldier. We can write poetry with one hand while holding a weapon in the other. The chamber was completely silent now, every being absorbed in her words. You saw our politeness as weakness. It is not. It is a gift we extend to those who wish for peaceful relations, but never mistake it for the whole of what we are. She looked at Elder Ziktar. Humanity still wishes to join the Galactic Council as full members. We have much to offer, our art, our science, our unique perspective, but we will only join as equals, with all the protections and responsibilities that entails. The elder's crest shifted to a pale green, the color of consideration among his kind. I propose a new treaty with Earth, recognizing humans as full council members with all associated protections. The vote passed overwhelmingly. As the session concluded, representatives from species that had previously avoided the humans now approached Samantha and her team. A representative of the crystalline Ficon race spoke in musical tones. Your species contains contradictions we find fascinating. We would welcome cultural exchange. As would we, Samantha replied with a genuine smile. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Peter watched Samantha speak with several alien representatives, her diplomatic demeanor fully restored. It's amazing how quickly she can switch back to ambassador mode, he said to Alan. Alan smiled slightly. That's the secret most species don't understand. For humans, the politeness isn't fake. It's just one facet of who we are. Olivia joined them, datapad in hand. The Council has approved our request for access to their scientific database. Earth's technology will advance decades overnight. A successful mission, then, Alan said. Samantha returned to the group, her expression satisfied. The olive branch leaves in 1 hour. Earth is expecting a full report. As they walked toward their ship, Peter glanced back at the Council station. Do you think they understand us now? Samantha followed his gaze. They understand us better. They know our strength now, which means they'll respect our peace offerings more. She smiled. Polite mode reactivated, but never forgotten. Behind them, the representatives of 27 alien species watched the humans depart, their view of humanity forever changed. They had witnessed what lay beneath human courtesy, not savagery, as they had feared, but determination, ingenuity, and unwavering loyalty to their own. And in the great ledger of galactic history, a new entry was made: humanity. Approach with respect.